Hello everyone, this is Susan Gerbic from the Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia project. Today we're going to talk about the upcoming election. You know, the topic that's more discussed than cupping was at the Olympics. What I'm going to talk about today is something pretty special. This is a Wikipedia page I wrote on a dare to myself. Once I started looking for citations, it just sort of came together. The page I'm talking about is the David Suhor page. That's spelled S-U-H-O-R. Maybe you haven't heard of David Suhor. I'm not surprised at all. He is well known in Pensacola, Florida area by the city government. This is a story that we're seeing more and more often these days. Him at Meta, who writes for Pathos blog as the Friendly Atheist, seems to have one of these stories once a month. And that was the problem. I kept hearing about these invocations at city council meetings and school boards, and they seemed to be happening all over the U.S., and I was just getting confused. So I picked one story, the one that was happening in Pensacola, and did some research. It took me a while to sort it all out, as I said, but once I spent a couple hours, I came up with a timeline and a lot of great citations. It also wasn't just happening at the Pensacola City Council, but several other government bodies in that area of Florida. Let me give you a little bit of a background before I tell you the story. David Suhor is a musician currently living in Pensacola. He worked for a few years as a church choir director and as a church musician. He sings opera and performs the local jazz group. He also has his own company as a singing telegram man. He performs as Elvis, a chicken, grandmother, or several other characters. I've watched many of his videos and he is quite talented. Let's just say that Suhor isn't the type that gets embarrassed easily, and he has no problem performing in awkward situations. He is well suited for what happens next. Back in 2012, Suhor appears to have become aware that the local county commission was beginning their meetings with a prayer, always a Christian prayer, and sometimes led by the city council member or the city staff. I don't know where these people were when the Constitution was taught in school, but I guess they were out sick that day. You would think they would have learned about this when they took office, but apparently not. Let me add that this isn't a life or death issue. No one's going to a cancer quack. This is an American city government that has crossed the line by endorsing Christianity exclusively. This is one of those buttons of mine that really pisses me off. I hate cliques. I mean, I really hate them. And the idea of a government agency thumbing their nose at a big chunk of the community saying, "Too bad, so sad, you aren't a part of our clique, even though we were elected to represent you." When challenged, they get all defensive and act as if no one cares and maybe the complainer should just shut up. Then they cry that their religious liberties are being infringed on. Oh, the irony. I think this is a good time to mention that in 2014, the U.S. Supreme Court voted in favor of the town of Greece, New York, to allow religious invocations before city governments. There are many rules laid out that need to be followed, which you can read for yourself if interested on Wikipedia. Pensacola isn't following these rules, and David Suhor tried to get the county to listen to reason. They kept ignoring him or making excuses for their behavior. So Suhor took it up a notch. He decided he wanted the government to understand how uncomfortable it is to sit and listen to a religious ritual that is different from your own. His goal is to get the government to remove invocations completely, which would then be inclusive and represent the entire community. Suhor managed to get the county commission to allow him to present an invocation. The video makes it clear that the commissioners thought he was a Christian, which must have been really uncomfortable for them when Suhor gave an invocation that was inclusive of many faiths, almost all of them faiths I wouldn't even try to pronounce for you here. You will just have to read the Wikipedia page and follow the links to the video. It was actually quite beautiful and poetic. I don't think that went over quite well in Pensacola. Suhor continued making his point, challenging the city council and commissioners, trying to either go to a moment of silence or to allow him to give a non-Christian invocation. The media, always interested in a conflict, began to get interested, and it got more colorful. Suhor began a satanic church which satisfies the requirement that the government groups enacted that only invocations could come from clergy. Then he started on the school boards. Can you imagine how this is escalating? These school board meetings thought no one cared that they always had a local Christian pastor to pray for them before the meeting, and that was okay. Sometimes even they led the prayer. The media and the public became really interested when he got permission to do an invocation as a Satanist, completely dressed for the part. The audience freaked out, waving crosses and reciting the Lord's Prayer. At several of these meetings, the board members walked out when Suhor presented. They went outside and they led a prayer with other people who also walked out. His invocation was sung, and it was just beautiful. I have the video on the Wikipedia page for you to watch. Then later, during the public comment part of the meeting, Suhor changed his clothes and confronted the school board, asking them if it felt uncomfortable to sit through that, and said that the board has brought this all on themselves. At one event in June 2015, the school board met to discuss the legality of religious invocations. The Christian community showed up for about 30 minutes before the start of the meeting. It was complete chaos, with people around the room, hands in the air, singing Amazing Grace, people in the audience speaking in tongues, and Suhor trying to read an invocation to the flying spaghetti monster, followed by a prayer to Krishna and then to various other gods. One man screamed over and over in Suhor's face the entire time, "In the name of Jesus!" Skepticality listeners, you have got to watch this video. How Suhor and one of the other members of the local free thought group managed to hold it together, I do not know. It was a total free-for-all. The Freedom from Religion Foundation and the American Humanist Association have now become involved. The possibility of lawsuits is starting to rear its ugly head. It is such a waste of taxpayer money, and time should be better spent on real problems I'm sure the city is facing. But in my opinion, this is a fight that needs to happen. If these local governments can't do the right thing for the whole community to end these cliques, then they will have to be forced to do the right thing. Make an example for other cities and counties to follow. There's a lot more I've included on the Wikipedia page that I do not have time for now. The comments from the public will make you so sad, but the conversations with the elected officials you will just not believe. I have a red welt on my forehead from slamming my head on the desk. It looks like I've had forehead cupping. So I promised you I would talk about the election. And yep, I'm at the end of my story, and the moral is that this fall, many of us are going to be allowed to vote for people to represent us. We spend so much time talking about the presidential race that we forget that there are other names on the ballot. Do you know who's representing you locally? Most people don't know who the judges, sheriffs, school board, city council, and even their senators are. This is how people like these in Pensacola get elected. We aren't paying attention. So this year, please read over your ballots and spend some time looking into who these people are. Make sure that they will represent the entire community and not just the clique they belong to. This is a segment about Wikipedia after all, and I want you to remember the power that it has. David Suhor has a beautiful, amazing Wikipedia page. Not a single one of these elected officials does that I can find. I find this very ironic and meaningful. I feel the change is in the wind, and I'm happy that I'm a part of it. If you'd like to train with me, I'm looking for people in all languages to join us. We aren't a clique. We welcome anyone willing to follow the rules and do the work needed to educate. Please write to me at GSOWteam@gmail.com.